to do this a little bit later than usual. There's some scheduling conflicts, but here we are on Friday afternoon. Robert Harding is with us. And of course, Justin Ritzel, who's got to be in the basement, right, Justin?
Does this look like a basement, Chris?
It does not look like a basement. Wow,
Pretty fancy looking basement then.
Wow, there's windows in that basement, pretty big ones too. All right, so
look at the interior design in that room. I mean, I tell you.
Oh, that's right. I forgot we yes, change of scenery. All righty, so we're gonna do we're gonna do our pick four. Robert and Justin are tied for the lead. And all of a sudden, I'm only one game behind. I've been coming on the last few weeks. Bad start, but chipping away at it, chipping away. Those 3-on weeks, they add up. So I'm within hailing distance, which is nice. So let's get to these games here. The first game, this was supposed to be a Sunday afternoon game. Now been moved to Sunday night because of COVID with the Raiders. It's Seattle on the road, -3.5 favorite at Arizona. The Seahawks still undefeated. Their defense has been not good. I've seen it firsthand. The Cardinals coming off a shellacking of the Cowboys on Monday night, and I'll do the cliche so Robert can make fun of me. Here we go. Team on a short week, divisional game. But I'm going to go with this. I'm going to go with the Cardinals. I think this is where the Seahawks run ends. I think this is where the bad defense that they've been playing catches up to them. I like Arizona to cover and win outright. So I'm going with the Cardinals in this game. Robert?
Oh, Chris. It's funny how you boast about your standings. I remember a certain game show in which you did pretty well in the early phase and then choked away a chance at victory. We know what the outcome's going to be. You'll either finish second or third. Enjoy your little streak while it lasts. As for the game, I'm taking the Seahawks. Look, Russell Wilson, they're coming off a bye. I think that I think they'll take care of business here. But look, the Cardinals got to take them seriously. This is why I think, Chris, you mentioned last week that I think you're referring to the AFC North as the best division in football. I think the NFC West is the best division in football, and the Cardinals showed why against the Cowboys, and the Niners showed why against the Rams last week. So I like the Seahawks in this one. I think the Cardinals will make it competitive, but I think the Seahawks will take care of business.
All right, Justin, who do you like?
I am not a believer in the Cardinals. They took advantage of a useless Cowboys team last week. We spent all week, not we, but the NFL experts spent all week saying, oh, the Cowboys, they won't be as good without Dak Prescott. But Andy Dalton, he's a totally capable backup. He totally laid an egg. I'm just, you look up and down the Cardinals schedule. They beat the 49ers. They're 4-2, but otherwise it's been a pretty unimpressive slate for them so far. And I'm not quite sold on Kyler Murray as a passing quarterback yet. Obviously, he does some damage on the ground, but he turns the ball over quite a bit. Meanwhile, you got the front runner, I think, hands down for MVP right now, Russell Wilson on the other side. I'm going to pick the Seahawks until someone proves me they can beat them. I don't think they're necessarily the best team in the NFC, but they have the best quarterback right now. And until Russell Wilson has a bad game, I'm not picking against him. I'll take the Seahawks to cover.
All righty. We differ on that one. All right, our next game, this was supposed to be the Sunday night game. Tampa Bay, 3.5-point favorite at Las Vegas. The Raiders have been struck by COVID. I believe they've got 5 players who are on the COVID list. I think most of their offensive line. Not a good spot. This game is supposed to be played on Sunday afternoon now. And who knows? This thing could be moving to Monday or Tuesday. Who knows? It's still early. But for now, we're picking this game. Look, the Buccaneers, what an impressive win over Justin's Green Bay Packers last week. I mean, they didn't just beat Green Bay. they shellacked Green Bay. Tampa Bay, I mean, I admit I'm surprised. I didn't think Tom Brady was going to play that well, but he is. I like Tampa Bay, especially because the Raiders are depleted. I like Tampa Bay to go on the road and cover 3.5 at Las Vegas. Go ahead, Justin. Your thoughts.
Well, no doubt it was, I'll give credit where credit is due. It was an impressive performance by the Buccaneers, who did fall behind 10-0. And if not for an irregular Aaron Rodgers pick six, followed by another interception, I think that game would go differently. But the Buccaneers played great on defense. They forced those turnovers. They harassed the Packers' offensive line the entire game. That's a quality defense. And they remind me a lot of last year's 49ers in terms of just the team speed that they play with. They don't have quite the elite pass rush that the 49ers did last year. But, I mean, Ndamukong Suh was like a presence last week. You haven't heard about that guy in like 5 years. I think that's a dangerous team defensively. Now, Tom Brady was irrelevant in that game. I'm sorry. They could have thrown in Jameis Winston back in that game, and the Buccaneers probably still win. That's how well that defense played. Tom Brady is there just to take care of the football and to make the occasional throw and let the defense do the rest. And that was their recipe last week. They clearly got up for that game in a way that they didn't 2 weeks ago against a fraudulent Chicago Bears team. So, before we anoint the Buccaneers as this big thing, let's remember they did lose to the Bears a couple weeks ago, and Tom Brady looked like garbage. If the Raiders weren't dealing with this COVID-like confusion right now, if that stuff wasn't up in the air, I probably would pick the Raiders, because I think the Buccaneers are probably feeling themselves a bit after last week, and the Raiders are, coming off, a Chrisism. They're coming off a bye week. They had an impressive win over the Chiefs before the bye. They're not a team to be trifled with. They can move the ball. I'll take the Buccaneers, but only because of my COVID concerns. I do think this will be a good game.
A Chrisism. I like that. Or as Robert would say, a Shiraism. Go ahead, Robert. Pick the game.
Shirism, Chrisism. Sounds like something you need a vaccine for. Either way, I like the Bucs in this one. I agree with Justin. The defense has played pretty well. I get that the hype surrounding this team is going to be focused on washed up bums like Brady and Gronkowski. But the defense has played exceptionally well this year. And, if they go deep in the playoffs, that'll be a big reason why. And they play well last week, and I think they'll play well again this week, obviously for the reasons you mentioned with the Raiders' COVID struggles that have emerged. Hey, maybe don't hold some of these events with no masks, comes back to bite you possibly. So hard lessons there for the Raiders, because I think that Gruden has put together a surprisingly competitive team this year. I think they've improved on both sides of the ball, and they've played pretty well. Obviously beat the Chiefs. That team is certainly not a pushover, but I think they'll struggle in this game, just given all the problems that they faced on the COVID front and the players that they'll be missing possibly. So I'm taking the Bucs.
All right, our next game. This is arguably the best game of the weekend. This is the Battle of the Unbeatens. Pittsburgh at Tennessee. Tennessee is -1 point favorite at home. And I mean, like I said, Tennessee, impressive so far. Pittsburgh, obviously, very impressive so far. I'm going with the home team. I mean, I know there's really no home field advantage anymore with COVID, but I think Tennessee is top to bottom overall the second best team in the NFL after the Chiefs. And I like Tennessee. I mean, like I said, it's a 1 point spread, not like a big spread here. I like Tennessee to win. Obviously, they're going to cover. Ryan Tannehill's resurrection continues. Derrick Henry, arguably the best running back in football. I like Tennessee to expose the Steelers and win. Robert, your thoughts?
Ryan Tannehill's playing so well because he's not playing for some bum coach and a bum franchise. Take him out of Miami and take him away from Gase, and
And
lo and
Philbin.
behold, he's a decent quarterback. So I like the Steelers in this one. I think Tennessee is a good team. I saw them dismantle the Bills. But they did struggle against the Texans last week, and I think that exposed some weaknesses in this team, especially on the defensive side of the ball. The Texans don't have as good of an offense as they once did, and part of that's due to the loss of DeAndre Hopkins. But they really took it to Tennessee and should have won that game, really. The Steelers, I think, are just such a good all-around team. The offense is solid. It's not flashy, but Big Ben being back certainly makes a difference. And the defense is arguably the best in the league. The way that they can rush the passer, they do so many things well. They can force turnovers. So I like them against Tennessee. Like you said, Chris, not a huge home field advantage in this one. I know Tennessee does have fans. This is in Nashville, right?
Yeah, this is in Nashville.
Yeah, I know that they'll have some fans there, but it won't be a packed stadium. I don't think that makes much of a difference anyway. I like the Steelers.
All right, Justin.
Well, Chris, I'm going to take issue with the word choice you used, that the Titans will expose the Steelers. The Steelers are a really good team. In terms of points against, they're the best in the NFL, second best in yards per game, second best in sacks this year. That's despite the fact that they had to take a week off earlier this year because of the Titans. Remember, they were supposed to play the Titans a few weeks ago, and that game had to get moved. And then Robert mentioned it, the offense. Listen, the Steelers' offense isn't as good as it was with the heyday of Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell, but they do have a Hall of Fame quarterback who I think can rise to the occasion still when the team needs him to. But listen, they put up 38 points last week against the Browns. I get it, it's the Browns, but they did that with Roethlisberger throwing one touchdown. That shows just how well-rounded they are. They can beat you in a lot of ways, through the air, on the ground, with the defense. They're a really good team. This is a tough line. 1 point. I'm going to go with the Steelers, but I don't think that you're wrong either way, no matter who you take. This is going to be a great contest. I wouldn't be surprised if this is the preview of the AFC Championship.
Well, we'll see. All right, our last game is the Chicago Bears, Justin's second favorite team, of course, playing at the Los Angeles Rams. Rams are -6. So the Bears are 5-1, and everybody keeps asking, like, how is this happening? The Bears are not a good team. Their offense is absolutely dreadful. Mitch Trubisky's been benched for Nick Foles. How do they keep winning? Now, you could maybe say the schedule's been in their favor, but they got a pretty good defense. I think that's been the major factor here. And with that in mind, I think they will cover against the Rams. I think the Rams are going to win, but 6 points is a pretty big spread. And I think Chicago is probably going to lose by a field goal, around that. So I like the Rams to win, but I like the Bears to cover. So I'm picking the Bears in this game. Justin, go ahead. Your thoughts.
Yeah, the Bears are 5-1 with a huge point differential of a whopping 12 points this year. That just goes to show that they're in a lot of close games, and they've been fortunate to win a lot of close games. They're not dominating anybody. They do have an impressive win, as mentioned before, over the Buccaneers. Otherwise, it's been a pretty lame schedule so far. They do have a good defense. Their offense stinks. I don't know how they're going to move the ball against this Rams defense with Aaron Donald and company. I'll take the Rams.
All right, Robert.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the Bears' schedule, they've got a loss to Indianapolis in there, and they've beaten the Falcons, Giants, Lions, Panthers, and Bucks this year. I give them credit for the Bucks win, but most of those teams are pretty bad. On the other side, though, the Rams lost to the Niners last week, and I think some people were surprised by that because of the fact that the Niners have been banged up this year. Against your Dolphins, Chris, they look dreadful with Jimmy G back. That it seemed like this. The Niners team, was kind of a shell of itself from last year, but they beat the Rams, and the Rams did lose to my Bills a few weeks back. And you look at the Rams' schedule; they've beaten all NFC least teams, and so it's really tough to buy or sell the Rams here. But look, I think the Rams have a good enough defense. That's really what it boils down to here. I think the Chicago Bears offense is pretty bad. I mean, you look at some of these games they've played, they only put up 17 against the Giants. A team like that, if you're as good as you say you are, you should be running them out of the building. So I'm taking the Rams in this one. I don't think the Bears will be able to put up the points like the Rams will. I think the Rams should win this by double digits.
Okay, those are our picks. We're going to continue with the NFL. We're going to do our week 6 takeaways and what to watch for in week 7. So for me, week 6 takeaway was the Patriots. They lost at home to the Broncos. And I mean, look, I understand these are not the Tom Brady Patriots. These are the Cam Newton Patriots, but still, this is a team that, they're 2-3. I mean, they have a losing record for the first time in October since what, 2000, in 20 years. I mean, it's look, I'm not writing their obituary yet. I mean, there's a lot of games left, but it's just a stunner to see the Patriots lose at home to the Broncos of all teams. So that's really my biggest takeaway is this the beginning of the end of the Patriots dynasty, so to speak. And then for week 7, I'm kind of curious what's going to happen with certain teams that are out of contention. Are we going to start seeing some sell-offs of star players, And will some of these losing teams that have good veteran players want to will they find takers for trades? Because obviously there's going to be some contenders that are, they're banged up. They might need somebody at a certain position. So will we see with the trading deadline on November 1st, I believe? So we've got a little over a week left. Will we see some trades and what will happen to, like I said, teams that are clearly out of contention, like the Falcons, teams like the Vikings, maybe teams that are going to, are not say they're tanking, but teams that, might have some assets, might want to accumulate draft picks for the future. Robert, your takeaways and what to look for.
Well, my takeaway from last week really focuses on the NFC West, that Rams-Niners, NFC West, the Rams-Niners game that I mentioned earlier. I think that really shows the strength of this division. That obviously, if the Seahawks there, the Cardinals are playing pretty well, and then the Rams and the Niners were kind of brushed aside, I think, because again, their injury woes and the team hasn't played well, but they beat the Rams, and now all of those teams are at least 500 or better. I think the Rams and the Cardinals are both have 2 losses so far this year, and then of course the Seahawks are undefeated. So really impressive division from top to bottom, and that Rams-Niners game really showcased that this division is up for grabs this year, and none of those teams are going to roll over. It's going to be a real competitive division, and I think we're going to see that again this week with that Sunday night game, the Seahawks and the Cardinals. Looking ahead to this week, the thing I'm eager to see is that Steelers-Titans game because the Titans, they did beat the Bills pretty well, but I think they made the most of turnovers in that game. That certainly made a huge difference in that one. The Texans put up a fight, but again, it's one of Shearer's favorite, divisional matchups. They know their opponent. So I think this is like the first real test for Tennessee to see, this team went deep last year, but are they really, do they belong in that class of the AFC? And this is a big test. The Steelers are a great team, from top to bottom. They do so many things well. and we'll see if Tennessee can stay with them. So that's really my game of the week that I won't be watching it. I'll be watching the Bills hopefully shellac the New York Jets, the East Rutherford Jets, but Pittsburgh and Tennessee, I'll be flipping over to Red Zone to see how that one's going.
All right, Justin, your takeaways and what to look for.
Well, first, I just want to address the nonsense that you spewed out, Chris. I know that you got to be excited because for the first time in 30 years, the Dolphins might have a chance to finish ahead of the Patriots, save for that fluky 2008 season, the one where the quarterback got hurt week 1. So I know you're feeling yourself a little bit, and we'll get to your Dolphins in a minute here, but let's not forget that the Patriots were a play away from beating the undefeated Seahawks, and they probably would have beaten the Chiefs if Cam Newton would have played. They've given that team all sorts of trouble. So let's not be so quick to bury the Patriots. They're going to be in the mix for a playoff spot. And dare I say, they're going to finish ahead of your Miami Dolphins when all is said and done. As far as something I want to bring up. So we brought up the Cowboys. I brought up the Cowboys a little bit earlier when we were talking about the Cardinals game, and obviously they stunk on Monday night. I just want to address this report that came out the other day from Jane Slater, who covers the NFL. I'm just going to read the tweet. Cowboys players initially bought into keeping things internal. Now as they sit 2-4, the discontent is leaking out. On the coaching staff, quote, totally unprepared, they don't teach, they don't have any sense of adjusting on the fly. Another one said, they just aren't good at their jobs. I don't know who the Dallas Cowboy players think they are to be calling out a coaching staff that's, at least with the head coach, has won a Super Bowl, that knows a thing or two about making the playoffs consistently. I'm tired of the Cowboys. Year in and year out, the media and the experts say, oh, the Cowboys are consistently one of the most talented teams in the NFL. Look at that roster. On paper, they should be one of the best teams in the NFL. And year after year, they fall short. Maybe the players just aren't as good as everyone says they are. You ever think of that? These guys obviously don't understand that this isn't college anymore. This is the NFL. It's not the coach's job to teach you constantly what you need to do. Their job is to set you up for success, and you guys got to buy in. So to blame Mike McCarthy, who has won a Super Bowl, like I said, for your poor performance, listen, they're bad because the defense stinks. That's not Mike McCarthy's fault. That's Jerry Jones's fault. That's the front office's fault for not putting talent on defense. Last I checked, the offense, which is Mike McCarthy's specialty, was going up and down the field before their quarterback got hurt. But I'm just tired of the Cowboys. I'm tired of this elevated sense of talent and elevated sense of importance. You guys just aren't that good. And at some point, you can't blame the coaches because they said this crap about Jason Garrett. Oh, he wasn't teaching us. He was unprepared, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, well, now you got a new coach and it's the same thing. So at some point, it's not the coach. It's on the players. Get a grip, Cowboys. Start having some accountability. And then the one thing I'm looking forward to, kind of to piggyback off Robert, I am very terrified of the San Francisco 49ers. Like I said in our preview video going into this season, I didn't think they would necessarily win the division this year because it's just tough to kind of keep up that momentum. After losing in a Super Bowl, we have a lot of recent history that shows that. But I did say I think they're going to get into the playoffs and they're going to make it to the NFC Championship game as a wild card. And nothing I saw last week is going to knock me off that perch. Once they get semi-healthy, they're going to be a team to be feared. And unfortunately, my Green Bay Packers have to play them in a couple weeks, and I'm not looking forward to that game. So watch out for the 49ers. Kyle Shanahan is a genius, and I think we haven't heard the last of them.
All right. Our next topic is one that's near and dear to my heart. Justin alluded to it a little earlier, but the Dolphins have made the switch. It's Tua time. And I will admit I was surprised. I think everybody was surprised. I don't think anybody saw it coming now. We'll recap. The Dolphins are benching Ryan Fitzpatrick as their quarterback. They're 3-3. They've won 3 out of their last 4 games. They've looked very good. They put up 24 against the Jets. They put up 40 plus over the Niners. Ryan Fitzpatrick has played well. I'm not going to say he's played great, but he's played well. Not bad where you would think like this guy should be losing his job. But, here it is. It's happening. So as the Dolphins fan in this group, I mean, there's a part of me that, like I said, I'm a little apprehensive about it for a couple of reasons. Number one, the team is playing well. They've actually entered into the playoff conversation. You're changing something that might scuttle those plans. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But on the other hand, I understand that, football is a results business. And like I said, Fitzpatrick, he's played well, but he hasn't played great. I mean, he's been solid. Okay. Not spectacular. So, Brian Flores, the Dolphins head coach, he sees these guys practice. He must see something that Tua is ready, that he knows the offense well enough to be able to go in and run the offense, Chan Gailey's offense, that he's healthy enough that the hip from last November is completely healed and there won't be any health effects whatsoever, and that the time is right. Now, obviously, the Dolphins bye week was originally supposed to be week 11 in November, and it got changed because of COVID, so it's this week. So I don't know how much if that plays a role in it, that he has an extra week to get ready. Maybe the whole plan all along was to do this at this time, bye week, whether it's now or November. But here we are. I'm excited about it. The Dolphins are actually getting, talked about nationally. They're on ESPN. They're on talk radio. I mean, all of a sudden the Dolphins are a national story. So as a long-suffering Dolphins fan, it's thrilling to see. I hope the decision doesn't backfire, but Tua is the guy now. You can't go back to Fitzpatrick. He even said that himself. And I'll even quickly talk about Ryan Fitzpatrick. He did a Zoom call with the Dolphin beat writers the day after this was announced, or actually it was leaked because it was formally announced on Wednesday morning. It leaked out on Tuesday. The talk is Ryan Fitzpatrick said that he was, very hurt, that he thought the team was his, that, he was all in and he hadn't felt this way since he was with the Bills, and it really hurt him, and his kids didn't find out about it till they found out on social media. Again, as a Dolphins fan, I love Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's been great. I love his attitude, his moxie. He's been fun to watch for the last year and a half, but this is all about the future. Fitz is not the future. Tua is. So I feel bad for Fitz, but this is the right time to do it. If Flores believes it is. I believe in Flores and his decision making. So let's go Tua. Let's see how it goes. The Rams are going to be a tough test. Aaron Donald, arguably the best defensive player in the NFL, is going to give Tua a baptism of fire. We're going to find out pretty quickly how good this kid is. And if he doesn't light it up in the first game, then let's not overreact and say it's a waste. He's a bust. Let's play it out and see how it goes, and keep the expectations somewhat moderated, and we'll see how it goes. So, Justin, your thoughts on Tua time?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it doesn't matter really at all what Tua does, not only this upcoming week, but the rest of the year. I think just the experience of getting out there, seeing how fast these NFL defenses are, I think that's going to be invaluable to him. Chris, the Dolphins aren't exactly loaded with offensive talent. They're still trying to build up that roster, especially on the offensive side. So do I think he's going to come in and light it up right away? No, I think he'll be fine. But I think this illustrates what we talked about during draft season, and to kind of maneuver a little bit as far as my team, which also drafted a quarterback in the first round, is that you're seeing it, whether it was planned like Joe Burrow or not planned like Justin Herbert, that when you draft a first round quarterback, they're going to play that first year. That's just how it goes. You got to throw them out there, trial by fire, see how they can do, and get an evaluation on them. The days of a quarterback that is drafted that high, sitting and learning, are done. They're done. Okay. The Dolphins had every reason to totally sit Tua this year, treat this as a redshirt year. He's coming off a serious hip injury. And despite that, we're 7 weeks into the season and he's going to play, even though, like you mentioned, the Dolphins are 3-3 and Fitzpatrick's been fine. Young quarterbacks play. That's just the reality of today's NFL. And any team that treats it otherwise, I think, are wasting their time, frankly. As far as Fitzpatrick, listen, he's made more out of his NFL career than I think anyone would have said 10 years ago. But he is the guy who's a placeholder. That's going to be his legacy. No matter where he goes, he's a placeholder until a younger, better quarterback comes along. And it wasn't going to be any different in Miami. I feel bad for the guy, sure, but this was an inevitability. And you know what? Next year, he can go do it somewhere else. He's not going to be out of a job. It just probably won't be in Miami.
Robert.
Well, Chris, I came equipped with visuals today.
Oh, God.
Because Shakira, hips don't lie, right? Tua's hip isn't going to lie, Chris. It's his time. I try to tell you this before the season. You brought this crap out about, he's not going to play until, later in the season if he plays at all. Look, you don't draft a quarterback that high. Maybe back in the NFL when, you watched in the 50s and 60s, they would let quarterbacks take 4 or 5 years to develop. But, for this generation, we're past that. You gotta see what you have in these quarterbacks. And if it works out, great. You got a franchise quarterback, which is something the Dolphins haven't had since Marino, although where did that get them really in the end? And then, if it doesn't work out, then you can take a look at the draft and maybe explore some different options. But, I think it was just time. I get that the Dolphins are 3-3. It was a little bit surprising, but I think what Flores and company are doing here is saying, look, the AFC is pretty competitive. The Dolphins may not end up in the playoff hunt at the end of it. Yeah, it looks good now because they're close, but obviously they have some tough games coming up and the rest of the schedule. So things may not work out their way and they probably won't be in contention. So why not give this kid a try? And I'm all for it. I think it's a smart move on their part. Look, I've told you, Chris, and I know that, some of the Dolphins Twitter folks out there that you pal around with, they were buying what Fitzpatrick was selling. But this is, we saw this guy in Buffalo, right? He's a solid quarterback. And when he's playing well, he can really light it up. But he's streaky and, he is going to have missteps. And he's just not a guy that's a playoff quarterback. And he's not a franchise quarterback. So, which made his comments a little bit surprising to me that, he thought that this was his team. And it's like, well, in the off season, there was chatter like, would he even come back? So, I don't get this, 6 games in with a 500 record, all of a sudden you think it's your team. I don't know about that. So I agree with Ritz, there's always going to be a place for Fitzpatrick in this league. There's a lot of teams you look around that, certainly need quarterback help. I'm thinking of the Giants, their quarterback can't even run into the end zone. That guy falls out over his own feet and, he can hardly complete a pass. And, Fitzpatrick might be a bridge to a new quarterback there. Or even the Jets, because they've soured on Darnold, it seems, and they don't think that he's the answer. So we could see him back there. But, I just think that the Fitzpatrick era, if you will, ran its course, and it's time to see what they have with Tua. I think it's a smart move. I'm not just saying that because I want him to fail. I think that Tua was the right pick for Miami. and I think he'll do well, so well with that team that bum Marino will be forgotten, and they should give Tua number 13. That's how well I think he will.
Wow. What a man. What unbelievable. I just, wow. I'm just stunned. I'm literally speechless for you to talk about Dan the man like that. I mean, there's a statue of him in front of their stadium. He will never be forgotten. I'm sorry. Now,
look that was a participation statue. What did he do for your franchise? One Super Bowl appearance, and that was it. That guy didn't do anything for you guys except put up big numbers and make Don Shula look good. I mean, come on, what a joke!
All right. Let's move on.
Tua.
All right. Let's move on to our last topic. Man, I'll tell you. Dino Babers, Syracuse football. It has been arguably a horrible season on the Hill. Syracuse lost last weekend to Liberty. Now, no offense to Liberty, which, but, seriously, we're talking Liberty here, okay? Syracuse should not be losing to Liberty. They are a Power 5 school. They should not be losing to independent schools. And I'm sorry. So respect to Liberty for being 5-0, but there's no way they should be beating Syracuse in Syracuse. So John Wildhack, the Syracuse athletic director, announced that Dino will be back for next season. And the question that's been posed is, do you think this program is heading in the right direction? Well, as of right now, no, they're not heading in the right direction. They're heading in the wrong direction. But that's short term. Long term, are they heading in the right direction? The jury's out. I mean, look, here's the thing about Dino Babers. He's not getting fired, okay? They gave him a contract extension 2 years ago after the 10-win season. So I don't think Syracuse has a lot of, change in the cushions that they can buy out coaches like some of these other schools in certain parts of the country where they change coaching staffs like they change underwear, okay? So I don't see Syracuse changing coaches anytime soon. I think Dino gets the benefit of the doubt because of that 10-win season from a couple of years ago. And, look, Syracuse this year especially, I don't think you can really judge a coach fairly by this season with COVID. Players have opted out. Syracuse has had injuries. Their starting quarterback, Tommy DeVito, is out, although they weren't playing that well before DeVito went out. And DeVito has not been that great a starting quarterback to begin with. But I just don't think you can fairly judge Dino Babers by this season or, like I said, any coach. So this year, the fact that you're playing is literally a miracle. Don't overreact. Flush it out. Move on. Next year, yes, we take a better look at Dino Babers and say, is this guy the right person to guide Syracuse long term? And let me just throw one more thing out there. Now, look, I get Syracuse fans. They are spoiled by Jim Boeheim and the basketball team's success, okay? Year in and year out, Syracuse men's basketball is a top 25 program. They've been to the Final Four multiple times. Obviously, they've won a national title. Okay. Football, unfortunately, kind of gets looked through that prism, okay? Now, I did a little research. The last time a team from the Northeast won the national championship in college football, anybody, and you guys want to take a guess at it? Last time a Northeastern team won the national championship in football, 1986, Penn State, okay? The only school north of the Mason-Dixon line since the turn of the century to win the national championship is Ohio State. That's it, okay? Every other year, it's either been Alabama, Clemson, USC, those schools. Now, look, I know Syracuse plays in the same conference as Clemson. I get that. But obviously, Southern schools are the schools that are going to be contending for national championships, or schools from the Big Ten like the Ohio States and the Michigan. These are the traditional powers year in and year out. Syracuse football over the last 50 years has really been I don't want to say an afterthought, but they have not been a great program. They've had some errors, small errors of great success. I don't want to say great success, but solid success. In the 70s, they were horrible. In the 80s with Dick McPherson, it took a few years, but they were a top 10 team at the later part of the decade. Paul Pasqualoni rode that through the 90s, and they were a solid team with Donovan McNabb. And then the wheels came off after 2004, after Pasqualoni was fired. And outside of Robert's favorite coach, Doug Marrone, having a little bit of success, okay, back in 2009, 2010, and then Dino with a 10-win season a couple years ago. Realistically, Syracuse has been one of the worst Division I programs in the country, year in and year out, if you look at it over the last 50 years. So for Syracuse fans that think, oh, yeah, we're going to contend for national championships, I'm sorry. I just don't see that ever happening on a regular basis. Maybe once in a decade, they might get the right formula and the right guys at the right time, and they might strike lightning and boom, they're a national contender. But year in and year out, this is not a national contending team. And I think Syracuse fans, unfortunately, because of the basketball team success, expect the same thing for football. Not the same thing. They need to dial it down, unfortunately, and just accept that this team, once in a while, you're going to get to a bowl game and maybe have a 10-win season, but they're not going to contend for national championship. I've kind of been going on a little bit long here, but, that's my thoughts. All right, Justin, you go ahead first on this one.
Well, I don't spend too much time diving deep into Syracuse football Twitter, but I don't know. I mean, I don't think there's too many people out there who expect the football program to reach heights where it's contending for a national title year in, year out. I mean, why you hype up the basketball program? I mean, as great as Jim Boeheim is, it's not like the basketball team is really seriously contending for a national title every year. They have years when they're really good. They have years when they're mediocre. I don't think it's unreasonable to say, hey, why isn't the football team at least like that? Why can't they at least be in the mix in the ACC, which the last 2 years they have not been. I look at just Dino Babers' his 4-year tenure with Syracuse, or 5 years. The biggest thing is that he is an offensive coach, and yet he can't recruit offensive linemen. They've gotten worse every year. They're among the nation's leaders in sacks allowed every year. And, when you have a great college quarterback like Eric Dungy, who's mobile and athletic and can kind of avoid some of that pressure, then the offense, you can make do. You can still succeed when you have a quarterback like that. But the second you put in someone like Tommy DeVito, who's maybe a little less athletic, you see what happens. They can't score, and that's a problem when you're an offensive coach. And unfortunately, the defense hasn't been as good as advertised either. Last year, I know that was kind of the theme going into the season from Dino Babers himself is, hey, this defense is going to be the thing that kind of carries us this year. And that didn't happen. This year, Andre Cisco gets hurt, their star safety, who should be a top draft pick this year in the first couple rounds. He's unavailable. So it's just been a disaster the last couple of years. And do I think Babers is in jeopardy of losing his job? No, for all the reasons that you mentioned, Chris. And also, I would say, and you, Chris, you've sat in on some Dino Babers press conferences. I've done so myself. We covered some games last year. The guy just has kind of this aura about him that makes you want to believe in him. Like he kind of, anything he says, he says it in a understandable way. And like I said, he makes you believe in what he's selling.
He's charismatic, no doubt about it.
I think in a, for better or for worse, that quality is going to keep him around, even if this program kind of continues to flounder as it has the past couple of years. So we'll see. I don't think you can feel great about where the program's heading. But he did get them to 10 wins a couple years ago after inheriting a not so great program. He's just a couple recruiting classes away from getting them back into at least respectability in the ACC. And like you said, I think you just throw this season out, not just in college football, but in a lot of sports. Just a weird year, weird circumstances. But 2021 is going to be an important year for him.
Absolutely agree with you. Robert, you get the last word.
Yeah, I don't think Babers is going anywhere, but when you look at his record, it certainly makes you question the direction of the program. Obviously that 10-win season a couple of years ago is the highlight, and that that win over Clemson. I think it was in 2017 where, you know, I remember it because there were so many Syracuse football observers who were like, "Oh, this is the turning point for the program," and here we are. They lose to Liberty 3 years later, and you just can't help but wonder if that's the low point for the program. You know, losing to a team like that, especially all of this happening under Babers. I think the biggest challenge with Babers is that you know, the recruiting seems to be inconsistent. They have a lot of different areas of need, and they don't seem to, you know, really fill those needs well. You know, it all starts with the quarterback, and I know that last year, you know, all these people who were like, "Oh, you got to give DeVito a chance. You got to give DeVito a chance." All this other stuff, and you know, we saw, you know, for glimpses this year. Obviously, he's been injured for part of the season, but you know, he continues to not play well. So, you know, definitely, I think they need a quarterback for this program, and they have other needs to address. You know, Justin mentioned the offensive line, definitely important in any college program to have that because it can help any quarterback, mobile or not, if they have a good line in front of them, because then they can just worry about distributing the ball or running it themselves. And of course, the defense has been a problem, and that's really been a problem throughout Babers' tenure. I think for the most part is that they've had some defenses that struggle. So, you know, I agree with you, Chris, that I don't think Syracuse is going to move on from him anytime soon. I think he'll get another at least year or two to figure this out. But I mean, if they go 4 years after that bowl appearance in 2018, if they go 4 years with losing records and, you know, really no direction for this program that's evident, I think then you've got to figure it out. So, you know, I'm talking, you know, after the 2022 season, I think that's going to be the moment where you say, okay, is this program heading in the right direction?
Yeah.
You know, are we recruiting, you know, consistently and getting a good group of guys every year? Or are we just kind of this middle of the road team, not even middle of the road, less than middle of the road, because they're not making bowl appearances. You know, in 3 of the first 4 years of Babers' tenure, they didn't go to a bowl game. So, you know, I think by the end of 2022, I think if we'll have a better idea of Babers' record. If that 2018 season is more of a fluke, I think that he's gone after 2022. If it turns out that, you know, that was just the start of something, and that, you know, 21 and 22 brought better classes, you know, better players, and the teams improve, then I think he sticks around as long as he wants to stick around. Because look, as we know, you know, these college coaches can easily move on. And if Babers doesn't think that, you know, he has room to grow at Syracuse and maybe somebody else wants him, then I think he could move on before that time period. So we'll see what happens. But, you know, I think it's easy to be discouraged if you're a Syracuse fan right now, because they're certainly not showing any signs of development. It seems like we're back to where we were when Baber started, and I don't think that's a good thing. I really don't think that's a good sign for what's to come. But I think he will have a couple years to turn things around and show that he can develop a solid program.
Yeah, I mean, I've always said that in all likelihood, that realistically, you need 6 years to judge a college football coach, to be fair. Okay, and I understand certain schools aren't going to give a coach 6 years. I give you that. There's a lot of schools that want to win now. I get that. But I think you need 6 years, because that way you get you get all your recruits in, you get to recruit a full class, get a chance to develop them, and try to sustain something. So 6 years to me is a fair amount of time for a college coach. And, you know, like I said, Dino, I think this is year 5. So I think next year is going to be important. I think they're going to have to at least have I think they're going to get to some type of a bowl game, at least finish 500 and get to a bowl game to show some progress. And in 2022, we'll see what happens. But all right, guys, we're going to wrap it up. I want to say thanks to Justin, Robert, obviously. A lot of fun as always going back and forth, especially on the picks.
You're welcome.
And, yep, you're welcome. And thank you to everybody watching, and I hope you've enjoyed the video, and we'll see you next week.